Do you have that memory of you and your grandpa sitting there in some lawn chairs, throwing the lines out, fishing, not catching anything all day, and you pretty much thought that fishing wasn't any fun? Well, I'm here to tell you that with the right research, the right tools, and the time put in, that fishing can be a lot of fun. It's a lot more complex than people realize. It involves a lot more thought processes than people realize. I'm just going to go through a few of those with you today to hopefully uh, let you know a little bit more about fishing. So, Tom Cece of On the Water wrote an article and he said, "What makes largemouth bass fishing so difficult is that these fish are moving all the time." And as someone who's fished most of their life and who's fished some tournaments and won a substantial amount of money, I can attest to this, and I'm really good. I feel like I really have a strong background in this. There's 4 seasons that fish go through. Obviously, the seasons that we go through: spring, summer, fall, winter. I'm going to start with some of these, and I'm going to show you where to fish. And when I say where to fish, I'm talking about not only the part of the body of water that you want to fish at, but also where you want to cast and what you're looking for. So out of these 4, spring is it changes the most because it's divided into 3 sectors. You have pre-spawn, spawn, and post-spawn. Spawn is just when the fish are laying their eggs. So in the pre-spawn, these fish, they're coming out of winter, so they are moving out of the deep ends and into shallower ends. When they're spawning, they're near the banks, so they're in the shallowest part of the water they'll be in all year. This will only happen when the weather starts to get warmer, so it warms the water up. And then the post-spawn will back off the banks a little bit, but they'll stay near there because the bait fish are moving into spawn just where they spawn. During the summer months, they're going to be backing all the way off that, and they'll be in the deeper water so they can cool down. They'll also be getting near weeds that have grown up. That way they can get that oxygen, they can get that cool air. During fall is kind of when they're no longer looking for that. They're changing into chasing shad and bait fish, so they'll be near the openings of, for instance, a river coming into the lake. And near that, in the winter, they're going to really dive down and get deep, and they're going to hunker down. They're going to look for a steep slope. That way they can move from a high depth to a low depth really easy. They're very lethargic in the winter. They don't want to swim a lot. Kevin Van Dam of Bassmaster said, "Water clarity is a major determinant of bass depth in winter. Clear lakes, so that means just seeing the sun can come through really easily, so they'll go down even deeper because the sun will penetrate all the way through there." The next thing I'm going to talk to you about is the bait choice. So if you're in the right area, casting in the right place, but you have the wrong bait, it's still not going to end well for you most of the time. It can, but it's usually not going to. So things you're going to consider are color, depth, and how far these baits can go into these depths. So for instance, if you have a weightless worm, it's not going to travel down as far as if you have something that's very heavy and very weighty, it's going to go all the way down. Bonini Staples said, "Water temp drops down to freezing, and when this happens, the bass get very lethargic, and they'll go even down farther, so the fish aren't more as likely to feed in, they're going to be much more lazy, and they have just bulked up from the thing. So you're going to have to worry about getting those baits all the way down there to where the fish are." They're also looking for different things. So the baits you're going to choose, for instance, when they're in the spawn, are going to be things that are looking to attack eggs. So you look for very fast-moving things throughout the beds that these mother bass are going to attack, versus in the winter months you look for something much more slow-moving and much bigger. That way they can look for an easy meal. For instance, something topwater that you're not really in the time like a jerk, which you just simply jerk across the water. That way they see a wounded fish and an easy meal. Bass love an easy meal, especially during the winter months when they don't want to swim as much. The last thing I'm going to talk to you about is the rod and reel that you want to go through with this. The 2 things you really want to consider is rod power and rod action. Power is simply how strong the rod is and how much pressure it takes to bend this, while action is more sensitivity. So if you're using a larger and bigger bait, you're going to want a lot more. For instance, if you have a deep diving crankbait that's really big, really heavy, you're going to want a more powerful rod that will be less action because it'll be less sensitivity that you can really cast far. Because you're not really worried about the sensitivity. While if you're using something weightless, you really need the sensitivity kicked up on that. Mike Cork really explains it well when he talks about how power is the pressure it takes for an angler to actually make the rod bend. So fishing is very complex. It has a lot of things that go into it, a lot of thought processes that go into it. So don't let it be fooled you. If you one time you went and you just sat there and did getting bites all day, with the right research, right tools, it can really be a lot of fun and it can be very rewarding. Here's some pictures we have that we're talking about the depth here in the winter months. These are the different baits that you would use during the summer and winter months. And we're talking about rod power, rod action here, and reels that you would want to go with that. We're going to move on to questions now. Yes, John?
What kind of rod would you use for an Alabama rig?
So an Alabama rig is like a really heavy, if you don't know what that is, it's a bait that pretty much has 5 baits coming off of it, so it's super heavy. So that's the one where you want to use a really powerful rod and you're not worrying about the sensitivity on it, because when a fish comes on, it's really attacking. You don't have to wonder if there's a fish on there. It's not like you're using like a wacky worm or something like that. So you want the more powerful rod, the longer rod. So on that.
Say I was going fishing for some heavier bass. What type of rod should I use?
So if you're looking for you're really going like trophy fishing, it just depends on what they're at. For instance, if they're laying low, like a lot of big bass are not as active as the smaller bass, so they look for the bigger meals. So once again, you'd want something bigger, a bigger crankbait that would go down low, and you're looking for less sensitivity, more power in the rod.